What's up guys? Tyler V at ZZP here. Today we got another install video for you. What's up guys? Tyler V at ZZP here.
Your man Alex at ZZP, how's it going?
Got Alex here with me because he's the one who's putting together what we're installing today. He's been working on our LE2 Flex Fuel kit for the last few months here. We've got everything in stock. We've got custom harnesses done. We've got custom powder coated brackets. We're gonna walk through the install today. Super easy, straightforward. Probably our easiest Flex Fuel kit out of all of our platforms here.
It's super simple. We only need a couple of tools. Everything's real obvious, kind of how it goes together. But we wanted to shoot a little video today to give you a lot of clarity on the ins and outs of this kit.
And if you don't know, E85, we call it Flex Fuel. That's kind of the most known nomenclature. You know, when you show up at the gas station, that's probably what the pump will say. But E85 is awesome. I mean, we run it in all of our cars here. We're blessed in Michigan that it's readily available. If you didn't know, E85 is basically race fuel. And ever since I think it was about 2006, GM, all of their lines are rated for E85. So especially on this car, it's great because nothing else is needed. Just a PCM tune, the Flex Fuel kit. Injectors are good for full E85.
Correct.
At least on the stock turbo.
And on the big turbo.
And on the big turbo. So even better. We'll take you through this step by step. We'll show you what tools you need. And let's get to it, guys. All right. So you might be wondering what tools you'll need today. Let's go over it. Tools needed. Very straightforward install, not much you need. First is going to be your fuel line disconnect tool. That's for removing your stock line to connect to the sensor. Next is going to be a couple of picks for various parts of the install, getting those locks off of the connectors, and then also for installing your pins into the PCM. Basic ratchet set, all you really need is a 10 mil and a 13 mil. With your ratchet, you might want an extension. And then for our special fuel line fitting, you're gonna need a 3/32 Allen wrench. And that's it. As for the components of the kit, realistically, there's only 3 major pieces. You're gonna have your flex fuel sensor pre-affixed to the bracket. You don't need to do anything with this. Just make sure your bolts are tight. Then we're gonna have our fuel line. This is gonna go from your stock hard line to the sensor, and then from the sensor goes to your stock flexible line. Included in this line, we have a quick disconnect that's gonna be for the sensor itself. And then we have this special 2-piece fitting down on the bottom here. That's what your Allen wrench is needed for. We found out that the 2nd gen Cruze actually has what seems to be a rubberized coating on the fuel lines. Good thinking GM, so you don't end up with a cobalt situation where they all rust out, but it makes things a little more complicated. So for this, you just use an Allen wrench, loosen this off. I'll show you how it goes down the road, but that's your fuel line. And then you've got your flex fuel harness. What I really like about this kit is for power, we have a O2 sensor interrupter, you would say. This does not affect the function of the O2 sensor at all, but we get reliable power from there. Makes install super easy. This end goes in your flex fuel sensor. You've got a ground, and then your pin for the ECM. Let's get to it. All right, first things first, since we are working with the electrical system, you're gonna wanna disconnect your negative terminal on your battery. Thanks to Movie Magic, we got everything out of the way. There is quite a bit that you have to remove and pull out of there, but 10 mil. Loosen up your terminal. Pull that sucker off and just kind of tuck it out of the way. Make sure you're not touching everything else. And back up to the front we go. Now that we've got the battery disconnected, we can go ahead and work on the engine side. first things first, you're gonna wanna take your fuel line tool. If you don't have one of these, pick them up at your local parts store, or we sell them on the website. So you're gonna use the 3/8 side. You're gonna put that around your fuel line. Push the line towards you until you bottom it out onto the tool. Then start to pull it away. And the fuel line's off. Easy tip, because we're gonna need to connect it to the sensor, is just pull it up, put it on this engine lift bracket here. Now that we have our stock fuel line connected, this is where we're gonna hook up our ZZPAN line. Like mentioned, we have a bit of a special fitting for these Gen 2 Cruzes. It's 2 pieces, so before you install, you're gonna remove your Allen screw here. Don't lose that. Take that off. Set it aside, make sure your cat, your honey, whoever, doesn't knock it out of the way. So this is gonna go, stock fuel line comes up, we'll get this on, then we'll tighten down that second piece of the fitting. So let's get in there. Like mentioned, the stock fuel line has that rubberized coating around it, so it is a little bit bigger than your standard 3/8. So what I've done is used a little dielectric grease, put it around the end of the fitting. That makes just going into these O-rings a little bit easier. So take your fuel line like this. We're gonna get down in here, get it started on the stock fuel line. I would grab the stock line with your other hand, and then you'll feel it fully click and get into both of those O-rings. So once that's installed, you'll go ahead and grab your second piece, because we're working with a very small Allen head here. We'll get that lined up with the bolt hole and started by hand. Make sure not to have too much coffee the morning you're doing this. You don't want to be shaky. Once that's in, snug it down with your Allen. Very small diameter thread, so it doesn't need much. Now that that's tight, you can rotate the line, because our bracket and our sensor are going to end up right here. Take your line and rotate it about 30-40 degrees forward. Just ends up for better placement. Once we get the sensor and bracket on here, this is going to be your input into the sensor, fuel flows through, and then your outlet is going to be your stock flexible line there. So let's get that bracket and sensor on. You're going to need your 10 and your 13. So our flex fuel sensor is going to mount right here onto the back of the engine. There's a 10 mil that holds this plastic wire harness to there, and then there's going to be a 13 mil on the engine lift bracket. So go ahead and take your 13 mil, crack that loose, and back that all the way out. Set that aside, grab your 10 mil. Then you'll go ahead and loosen and take off this bolt here. Grab your bracket. And like mentioned, that's going to slide under your wire harness carrier. Lift that up, get that over, it'll hold it into place. I'm gonna put the 10 mil on, then I'm gonna grab that 13 mil bolt. Gets a little more awkward in here when you've got that sensor, but nothing too bad. engine lift bracket bolt tight. Go ahead and tighten up your 10 mil up here. Now that our sensor and bracket are installed, I'm gonna go ahead and take your AN line, connect it to the left side of the sensor. There we are. Then take your stock line and go to the outlet. And then the fuel side is done. Now that we've got the fuel side set up, we got our sensor tightened down, we're gonna move on to the harness. So I'm gonna start right around this side here. I'm gonna take our flex fuel connector, run it under this hard line to the fuel rail. Gonna kind of snake it down across here, tuck it out of the way. I'm gonna go under this cam position sensor. So we'll go ahead and plug into the sensor there. We heard it click. Good. Tuck your wire down out of the way. And then you're gonna follow this harness, and here's your O2 sensor. So this is where your pick tools will come in handy. Slide that out, push down, that'll pop apart. And then you've got your male and your female. This is gonna clip together just like your stock one did there. Clip that. And if you want, you can move your excess wires down and get that in the stock orientation there. Lock those connectors in. And then we've got our second half of the harness. So I'm gonna follow this line back here. Pull that through. Our ground is going to go down underneath, and you're going to connect to this post back here. So I'm going to need my 10 mil. So we'll take our 10 mil, loosen up that ground post. Set that aside. And go ahead and snake this portion up and around. Now you're not going to remove the old ground. You'll just add this one here. Snug that down. Good there. Then the last portion, and this can be the trickiest portion of the kit. I'm gonna run our ECM wire through this plastic piece behind here. I'm gonna follow it, follow the OEM wiring harness up around here. Now this pin is gonna go into your stock connector. So you'll undo the main one here. This is going to be your J3 terminal, and we're going to go in to the pin 70 socket. But to get started, you need to make sure you remove this assurance. This is something that not a lot of people do, and it's the only way that you can make sure that the pin is seated correctly. So take your pick. There's a little channel that you'll want to pry up on both sides here. Once you feel that pop loose, just work gently. You don't want to break that. So that's off. There's 2 clips on the side of here. You'll likely have a zip tie holding everything together from the factory. Pop those clips off, and your plastic piece is going to come off. So as you can see on your connector here, you have all your OEM wires. You're going to start from the bottommost row, start from the edge, and you're going to count 3 slots in. So you got your yellow wire, we got a blank spot, and that's going to be our pin 70. Now, obviously, we developed the kit on this car, so we've already installed it at least once, but likely you're going to have a plastic plug in that spot. So that's where your pick tool is going to come in handy. You're going to need to push that plastic through. So just be gentle. As you can see, it's got this rubber gasket through there, so you'll have some resistance. But you'll then take your wire, pull it through, and then insert it into the slot. So now this is where you need to be the most careful. Obviously it's a small gauge of wire, so get it oriented correctly, get it started, and you're gonna push that all the way in. You'll feel it and hear it click. And as you can see, your connector is going to come up through there, and you're going to need it to sit on this plastic channel in there. As you can see, as I first pushed it through, it's going to be off to the side. Now, what a lot of people make the mistake of is they just push it through, throw the connector back on, and then they wonder why their flex fuel kit isn't working. So you may have to fiddle with it a little bit. You'll hear it click into place. Once that's in, you'll want to go on the back side, compare it to your other pins, make sure that they're seated correctly, fully, all the way. Hold the wire from the back side. You're going to put your assurance back on. You'll feel that click. Give the wire a little pull. You'll make sure that it's seated properly. Then what I'd like to do, just take a zip tie, put it around there, hold your wires all in place. Once that zip tie is back together, you're going to slide your plastic connector, or plastic piece, back on there. Put your J3 back on. Slide that in, lock it in place, and we're good to go. From here, once the kit is all physically connected, obviously at this point the ECM doesn't know that it has a flex fuel sensor and kit installed. So if you need some time before you get your revision into Turbo Tim, you can leave everything connected. Car doesn't know, it's totally fine. Go through, make sure everything's tight. You'll want to run through, just do a quick leak check. On this car, it's a push button start car, so leave your foot off the brake, make sure the key's in the car, press and hold the ignition for a few seconds. You'll hear the fuel pump prime, and now this may be something that you have a friend help you with, but just look everything over, make sure you got no leaks, make sure all your bolts are tight, all your lines are tight, and from there, all you need is your revision from Turbo Tim, and you're good. You're ready to run the 85. Let us know what you guys want to see next. We're going to continue with our LE2 2nd Gen Cruze development, and maybe we'll show you a little sneak peek of what's coming next. It's going to be real cool. We'll catch you next time. Peace.